Stefon Diggs to New England. We give you the latest here on Patscast.
Oh, we did it for Diggs, or just digging for deals. A star for the cheap.
Welcome to Patscast. I'm Brad Whitaker. Good to be with you. I think we were all stunned on Wednesday night to hear the news that there was mutual interest between the New England Patriots and Stefon Diggs. So much that he is in Foxborough, or at least he was in Foxborough Wednesday night and into Thursday visiting with the team. And we've all been kind of waiting around all day, waiting to hear the news, waiting to hear if the Patriots are finally bringing in a true number one wide receiver, one of the very best in the NFL. Savage Boston Sports tweeting all day, don't let him leave the building. Well, it looks like Stefon Diggs has left the building. According to Jordan Schultz, the Patriots' visit with wide receiver Stefon Diggs has ended, and while there is no deal in place as of now, both sides intend to remain in contact. As it was described to me, this was more of a get to know you and where you're at medically type meeting. Starting to get some DeAndre Hopkins vibes from this situation. Remember a couple of years ago, it really looked like the Patriots were going to get DeAndre Hopkins. Flew out to Gillette Stadium, met with all the coaches. He even took selfies in the locker room and posted it on social media. Really seemed like it was going to happen. And ultimately, he decided to go to Mike Vrabel's Tennessee Titans because the Patriots weren't willing to offer enough. And it really wasn't a high figure, but the Pats, as usual, under Bill Belichick, were being cheap at the receiver position. And I think they're kind of being cheap with this whole Stefon Diggs situation, if I'm being honest. Now, don't get me wrong. I really am rooting for this to happen. The Patriots need a number one wide receiver, and even if Stefon Diggs is not a long-term solution at the position, you need that type of veteran presence. You need that type of safety blanket for your second-year star quarterback. I think it's safe to say Drake Maye is a star quarterback at this point, or a budding star quarterback. You need that number one guy, and that's something they've been missing for quite some time. But there's a reason they are considering Stefon Diggs and not some of these other guys that were mentioned. DK Metcalf, T. Higgins, other wide receivers that have had their names floated out there. Because he is cheap, because of the situation Stefon Diggs is currently in. So, what we've heard really over the last 7 or 8 days is that the Patriots, the reason why they haven't made many big splash signings, especially on offense, and especially after the first day of free agency, is Mike Vrabel is trying to build a tough team-first culture. He's trying to build the team in his image, if you will. And that's the foundation he's trying to build, and that's why he's bringing in players like Robert Spillane, Harold Landry, Milton Williams, gritty, hardworking guys that fit that Patriot way mold with a little Mike Vrabel flavor on top. However, I'm not sure Stefon Diggs fits that mold. I mean, this is a guy that does have a bit of a reputation of being a diva wide receiver. Now, I think you should probably take that with a grain of salt because this would be his fourth team. He's going to be on his fourth team. I don't think he's going back to Houston or Buffalo or Minnesota, but this would be his fourth team. He's bounced around a few places, and as far as we know, the worst thing that's happened, character-wise, the biggest red flag in Stefon Diggs' career was him being very upset with quarterback Josh Allen because he was not getting enough targets. We all know Stefon Diggs, especially against the Patriots, real dynamic offensive weapon, but when Buffalo started developing some of their other receivers, Allen started spreading the ball around a little bit more, and next thing you know, Diggs is not getting the same number of targets that he was getting beforehand, and he was frustrated, not just with Josh Allen, but with the coaching staff, and he also wasn't exactly a peachy receiver in Minnesota where he started his career either. That being said, 31 years old, been in the NFL for quite some time, been a consistent contributor for every team that he's played for, even though he only played less than half a season with the Houston Texans last year. And they are saying some nice things about him. This is according to Phil Perry with NBC Sports Boston. Says, he got along well with people here in Houston. Everyone liked him, a staffer texted on Wednesday. He was a good teammate and worked hard, no noticeable issues. he understood Nico was the guy. So that's Nico Collins, number one wide receiver. I think he got hurt this past year. Houston had a bunch of weapons this year, and they had a lot of injury issues. I think they're going to bounce back this year and be a real Super Bowl contender. But that's part of the reason they added Stefon Diggs, because they thought they would get over the hump by adding Diggs with Nico Collins and all the weapons, Tank Dell, that they have in Houston. But it sounds like it went pretty well. Diggs, as far as I know, I think he was a captain in Houston, which, he should be a captain being a veteran, but it was also his first year on a new team. And his numbers last year, I know he got hurt, but they were very consistent with where he's played, where he's been at throughout the rest of his career. So let's just recap. He's a 10-year veteran. He has 6,000-yard seasons. Last year, before he got hurt, he had 8 games, 47 catches, 496 yards, and 3 touchdowns. So he was on pace to once again top 1,000 yards. Of course, the reason his season ended is because he's coming off of an ACL tear. So this is the reason why Stefon Diggs is affordable, right? If he were not coming off of an ACL tear, if he had another 1,000-yard season with the Houston Texans, and if he were just entering free agency as a healthy wide receiver, he would have been signed on day one of free agency. But because of that, there isn't the same amount of interest for Stefon Diggs, or he's not getting the money figure that he probably desires at this point in his career, because he is a number one wide receiver. But there's questions about how is he going to bounce back from the worst injury of his career at 31 years old. Not to mention, it takes about 9 to 12 months to recover from an ACL injury, and it trends more towards 12 months when you're in your early 30s than if you're, a young 20-year-old NFL player and you're able to bounce back in 7 to 9 months. Take Kendrick Bourne, for instance, last year. It took him nearly a year to get back. So let's go with the 9 to 12 month timeline. If it's 9 months, great, but that means Diggs is still going to be starting training camp late, and he's going to be catching up and still lucky to make it into the lineup week 1 of the NFL season. Now, if it goes the full 12 months, he got injured at the end of October last year, we're talking about him not returning until mid-season. So you're getting a guy, a free agent for, I don't know, maybe 9 to 12 weeks at best, in all likelihood. I guess there's a chance he's ready to go week 1, but this is why he was in New England. They wanted to look at his medicals. They wanted to get an idea of just where Stefon Diggs is at. And as far as we know, there really isn't any information on how well he has been progressing since his injury. So, look, this is why the Patriots want him, right? Because they know you're not going to have to pay $30+ million a year like you would for a T. Higgins or a DK Metcalf, one of these top younger wide receivers. You don't have to do that because he's 31. He's coming off an injury, so you're getting a tremendous discount there. And then he's also a receiver that might actually be interested in going to New England. We know this is not an attractive destination, especially for dynamic offensive players with big personalities, which Stefon Diggs certainly fits that mold. He may just not be interested in coming to New England, but when there's only a few teams on the list, well, he's going to take the best offer, and the Patriots have the cap space, still by far the most cap space in the NFL. I misspoke about a week ago saying I thought they had about $50 million left. I think they're a little bit under 100 still. So they could even afford to pay Stefon Diggs a top-tier wide receiver contract. Now, he's not going to get that, obviously, but for the Patriots to get this done, they know they're taking a slight risk, but not a huge risk because you're not going to have to pay $30 million a year. So you got to sign him for at least 2 seasons, you would have to think. If you're only getting him for a little more than half a year this year, you want him for another year, especially if you can bring in a guy. If Travis Hunter falls to you at number 4, that's a really great opportunity for him to learn from Stefon Diggs and ultimately step into that number 1 role when he enters the 3rd year of his career, or whoever the Patriots draft at wide receiver. It's going to help with the development of Jalen Polk and Javon Baker. And as much as I talked about Stefon Diggs potentially being a diva, worked out fine in Houston, and throughout his career, he's had a reputation of being a real workhorse out there, not just in the game, but in practice, in training camp. He's one of the hardest working players on the team, strong veteran presence. That is how he might actually be a good culture fit for Mike Vrabel. So you got to take the good with the bad. You would like to think at 31 years old, coming off of a good experience in Houston, being a veteran leader, a captain in that locker room, that Stefon Diggs is going to be past that stuff. He's going to understand that, maybe the days of him having 1,000-yard seasons are probably gone at this point. We hope his production stays consistent, but you never know coming off of the worst injury of his career, particularly a knee injury. And this is a guy that relies on his athleticism. I mean, he is arguably the best route runner in the league, at least in the slot receiver type role. Like, his ability to run just basic quick slants. He burned Christian Gonzalez in the end zone this past season on just a simple quick slant route. I mean, he is a very, very good player and really gave the Patriots DBs, including Christian Gonzalez, fits this season. But is he going to be healthy? I mean, that is the real question mark. Who knows? But like I said, the fact that he left the building, the fact that we're hearing both sides intend to remain in contact from Jordan Schultz, that's exactly what we heard when DeAndre Hopkins visited New England. So I'm skeptical this is going to happen. I think the reason the Patriots have a real shot is because I don't think there's going to be a ton of teams interested in Stefon Diggs at this point. Even if he is able to come back from this injury, it's just such a big question mark, and you're probably not going to get him likely until weeks 4 through 10, somewhere in that time period. And yeah, maybe that's why he ultimately goes to the Patriots, whereas DeAndre Hopkins was healthy, had a good season in Tennessee. He had more options, but this could just be one big leverage play, both from Stefon Diggs and the Patriots. So Stefon Diggs doesn't have a contract, obviously, at this point. He goes to the Patriots, gets a ton of press. Well, that shows that, hey, some NFL teams are interested. Maybe his agent will start to get some more phone calls. That's the reason he's doing it. The reason the Patriots are doing it, well, one, is to show, hey, we're serious about bringing in a number one wide receiver. That's not to say there are a lot of great number one guys available. Like, you could go after a Brandon Cooks, who I think would be a really good option and probably would be your number one, but he's not a number one on most good offenses. But it would attract some of those free agents. But I think more importantly, it shows that the Patriots are serious if they want to find a trade partner and bring in their wide receiver that way. As Greg Bedard has floated out, he really does think the Patriots at some point this offseason, and it may happen now, it may happen after the draft, it may happen into training camp, depending on how some of the rosters play out. He thinks the Patriots are going to make a move for a big-name wide receiver like a Brandon Ayuk or like an A.J. Brown, who we know has a great relationship with Mike Vrabel. Bedard says that Ayuk is obviously the favorite. The Niners have not been shy, and their fan base has not been shy about being upset with his contract and how much of the cap that chews up. We know the Niners are looking to unload some cap space this offseason. I wouldn't rule out that move regardless of what happens with Stefon Diggs. And look, the Patriots could have an opportunity here if everything lands in place. This is not going to happen. There's a 99% chance this doesn't happen. But if all lands in place, they could have a starting lineup with Stefon Diggs. By midseason, Stefon Diggs, Travis Hunter, and Brandon Ayuk. And then you pop Douglas, Kendrick Bourne, Kayshon Boutte, whoever you want as the fourth receiver. And now suddenly you have a top 5 wide receiving core after having literally the worst receiving core for at least the last couple of seasons. Probably not going to happen, but 2 out of 3 ain't bad. And I think Travis Hunter seems increasingly likely, the betting odds, that he's going to fall to New England, especially if teams like the Titans, the Browns, the Giants, they're unable to land a quarterback, or they just get a bridge guy like Russell Wilson. That's not going to stop them from taking their future quarterback. I think, and this seemed crazy like a month ago, but I really think that those guys are going to be out the board, Cam Ward and Shadur Sanders, by the time the Patriots select, which means they're getting one of either Abdul Carter, the best defensive player in the draft, or Travis Hunter, just the best athletic, most dynamic player in the draft, who's either playing wide receiver or corner, probably playing wide receiver in New England. But unfortunately, they're not going to be able to do that or have that flexibility to take the best player available if they can't take care of the left tackle situation. Right now, yeah, there are rumors that the right tackle that they just, Moses from the Jets that they got, maybe he'll move to the left side and you put Caden on the right, or Caden Wallace is still trying on the left side and he competes with Vidarian Lowe. But as of right now, that's not a good option, right? We tried the experiment of moving a right tackle to left tackle, And maybe they're still trying with Caden Wallace, but I feel like they want him on the far right side, especially with Moses being, in his mid-30s at this point. He's not going to be in New England for very long. So are they going to be forced to draft Will Campbell in his short arms at 4th overall? I'm not sure, because everyone thinks Will Campbell's a guard, but at this point, you might have to take him and just say, hey, we'll kick you to guard at some point, but we need you to play left tackle for a year. Throw him to the Wolves. They might have to do that. Now, if you're going to do that, I hope you trade back, because I think Will Campbell, he could potentially fall out of the top 10, but there's 2 blue chip players in this draft, really 3, if you count Ashton Jonty from Boise State. They're all going to go in the top 10, but there's just not going to be that many opportunities to trade back like there would be in more talented drafts. So Patriots, they got to get someone at left tackle that at least is going to have you feeling comfortable heading into the draft. And you still need to address left tackle. You still need to address right tackle. You probably got to address center and one of the guard positions in the draft. You're going to be drafting offensive linemen through all the middle rounds and in the early rounds as well. I think the Patriots are going to have to do that, and they probably will. But take care of the left tackle. You still have Tyron Smith out there, right? And he probably doesn't want to come to New England. He probably wants to go to a contender at this point in his career. There's rumors that he is even considering retiring. Maybe he wants to go back to Dallas, where he was an all-pro level player for most of his career. Struggled with injury issues in Dallas, certainly struggled this past year with the New York Jets, but you don't need him for 17 games. Like, if we have to have Adarian Lowe or the tackle that is drafted in the mid-rounds or in the 2nd or 3rd round by the Patriots, and they play 9 or 10 games, and Tyron Smith fills the rest, that's fine. You have the cap space. You're probably not signing him to a contract for more than a year. You're just looking for a bridge guy at this point. I don't know what the Patriots are doing and why they're not just throwing all the money in the world at him, with some incentives, because he's got to be healthy and he has to play well. But even though his numbers did drop off last year, he is a far more serviceable tackle than anyone else on the market. And I'm kind of glad they didn't get Cam Robinson, because he might be worse than Adarian Lowe when all's said and done. The stats last year showed that he indeed was worse than Adarian Lowe. So it's probably good that they didn't do that. But Tyron Smith is still like a top 3rd NFL tackle when he's out there. I don't know. I just throw the money at him. Take care of it. And then you can draft Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter if they fall to you. Patriots got to do something there. But, we're all just sitting here waiting for them to get that big name wide receiver. I'm willing to be patient on the receiver position, because they might get Travis Hunter in the draft, and they might be able to get a really good player in the 2nd round if they don't take a receiver early on. I'm happy with Pop Douglas. I'm happy with the Mac Hollins signing. Kendrick Bourne should be a lot healthier this year. Hopefully, Jalen Polk and Javon Baker can develop. I think they're all going to play a lot better in Josh McDaniels' offense. He's going to be able to scheme around the limitations of these receivers. I'm willing to be patient there, but I am not going to be patient at left tackle. Take care of it now. Take care of it now. Protect your young quarterback, your franchise piece. We do not want a Mac Jones situation where he gets in his head and he's seeing ghosts on the field. I think Drake Maye is tougher than that, but even Tom Brady, his worst games were when he got hit the most, and it's that way for any quarterback. I don't care who you are. Drake Maye needs to be protected, and right now, he still has a bottom-tier offensive line in front of him. I think it's better than last year. I think Doug Marrone is an improvement as the offensive line coach. I think Josh McDaniels is going to be an improvement of scheming around the limitations of the offensive line, throwing in an extra blocker, a chipping tight end, a chipping running back. He's really good at that stuff. It's going to be better, but better from rock bottom is still bad, right? Slightly better than rock bottom is still bad. And the Patriots can take care and at least become kind of a middle tier, mediocre offensive line and develop some younger players that they draft, if they can bring in a guy like Tyron Smith, who's really the only legitimate left tackle left in free agency. There's also the trade market, but, who trades their left tackle, right? Unless they're trying to get rid of cap space. Laramie Tunsil happened, but the Washington Commanders were only able to make that move because they're in a position to compete for a Super Bowl right now. They gave up a ton of assets, which the Patriots cannot really afford to do. So, I probably would have made the Laramie Tunsil trade, in all honesty, and given up, they gave up a 2nd and a 4th and a 6th. They gave up a bunch of picks. A lot of people don't think the Patriots have the flexibility, but I do think left tackle is just that important. But I know why they didn't do it. I could go either way. There aren't going to be any left tackles that you can trade for, though. So, get Tyron Smith. Keep Kane Wallace developing on the right side. Hopefully he's your right tackle of the future. And then draft the best available left tackle in the second round, or use some of the assets you've compiled. You have multiple thirds now. Trade back into the first round and get a guy like Simmons from Ohio State. Josh Simmons. I keep forgetting his first name. I think it's Josh Simmons, who is the most talented left tackle in this draft, but he's coming off injury issues. So, yeah, I'm not sure. Or Armin Membu, right? I don't want to move him to the left side, but if you want to put Moses on the left side and you want to draft Membu, well, Membu is probably your long-term right tackle. So, I don't know. I really am a fan of the Patriots, regardless of what happens at 4th overall, trading back into the late first round and either getting a top-tier receiver or a top-tier left tackle that's available. They tried to do it last year. There weren't many suitors, and that's the issue, too. Like Kansas City, right? They're going to be looking to draft a left tackle. A lot of these teams, that's like their biggest need, and these are good teams because they're late in the first round. So, Patriots might have to trade somewhere within the top 23, 24, and they're going to have to chew up a lot of assets to do that, but I just don't want to be drafting all these middle round players who don't do much, especially in this draft, but we'll see. Elliot Wolf and Mike Vrabel, they have their work cut out for them right now, so we'll see what happens with Stefon Diggs. I'm not super encouraged considering he left the building without a contract. I think this probably was just a leverage play on both sides, but I would be very excited if he comes to New England. Skeptical with the diva situation, with the attitude, with the health, but we're desperate at this point, right? Us Patriots fans, we're very desperate, and the organization is almost as desperate, and, he may not be the best culture fit, but there are some fits there with Stefon Diggs that fits the mold of Mike Vrabel, so do it if you can. But don't rule out trading for Brandon Ayuk or an A.J. Brown, which would be amazing. And let's hope, cross our fingers, that Travis Hunter falls to number 4. But curious to hear from you. Let me know in the comments below. What do you think's happening right now with this Stefon Diggs situation? Do you think it's going to happen? You think he's going to come to New England? You think he's using the Patriots in the same way Hopkins did a couple of years ago? Let me know in the comments below. And if you're watching on YouTube, be sure to smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, hit that notification bell, or subscribe if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And we'll be back very soon with more New England Patriots coverage. Hopefully we get some exciting breaking news in the coming days.
Cats cast buzzing, rumors high. Stefon Diggs just took his shot. Met with New England, check the scene. Drake Maye needs help, that much is clean. Vrabel's culture, tough and tight. Diggs don't always play polite. ACL's torn, age is high. Is this just a Pat's mirage in the sky? Are we digging for Diggs or just digging for deals? A star for the cheap, that's how it feels. Is he here to play or just raise the stakes? Like Hopkins before, is this all just fake? No contract signed, no papers down. Diggs just bounced right out of town. Veteran moves, knows the game, showing he's wanted to boost his name. Diva rep, but he grinds so hard. 31 years, but still got yards. Is he the missing piece, the game's last trick, or a front row seat to another quick flick? Are we digging for Diggs or just digging for deals? A star for the cheap, that's how it feels. Is he here to play or just raise the stakes? Like Hopkins before, is this all just fake? Drake Maye sling it, needs a guy, but if Diggs ain't healthy, is it worth the try? Vrabel wants dogs, no sideline shows. Can Diggs lock in, man, nobody knows. watch it, waiting to see if Dig is real or just setting us free. A proven deal or just a flight. Patriots Nation, let's make this right.